Yes, and there is certainly a great deal of affection for Boris Johnson amongst the Ukrainian people. You only need to look at the roads that have been renamed after him, or indeed the National Rail Service of Ukraine that on the day of Boris's defenestration in Britain changed their logo on social media to add an animated mop of blonde hair atop it. Boris carries something of a cult status within Ukraine, and it's quite hard for a lot of people in the UK to really understand just how popular he is over there. But moments like this really show that it isn't confected, it is real. There is a genuine friendship between Boris Johnson and Volodymyr Zelenskyy, and frankly it will be a tough act to follow for the next Conservative Prime Minister, whoever they are, to carry the same force of personality. A lot of Boris Johnson's flaws in terms of his bombasticness, in terms of his sheer force of personality, in terms of his image, a lot of the things that were seen to be flaws of Boris Johnson when it comes to dealing with day-to-day governance or managing the operation in Number 10 were great assets when it came to be symbols abroad.
Just as you speak, Tom, we're just seeing some pictures. This is not live because we don't know the Prime Minister's current position, clearly for security reasons. So we're getting these played back with a delay from Kyiv. But clearly the Prime Minister wasn't just in meetings today with President Zelenskyy, but like he's done before, he's gone out and about onto the streets. We're not entirely sure who he and President Zelenskyy are addressing as they talk into those microphones there. But it's clearly outside. James Heappey, the Armed Forces Minister, seemed to be alluding to earlier on, these visits clearly, he's the Prime Minister, he's got security, of course he has, but they are not without risks, given the concern today that Russia may well attack Kyiv on the anniversary of its independence. There was meant to be a parade in the city today that got cancelled because of security concerns, but the Prime Minister has gone ahead. As I say, we're not entirely sure who they're talking to, but yet again a sign that the Prime Minister wants to stand shoulder to shoulder, literally, with the Ukrainian president and be seen as a very visible force on the streets of Ukraine. Tom, in saying that, what I noted also about the Prime Minister's press conference or speech a little bit earlier on is that he did emphasise that it wasn't just him who had President Zelenskyy's back, that it was the entire House of Commons. And that is an understandable but an interesting point the Prime Minister wants to make, in the sense that this is probably going to be his last visit as Prime Minister abroad. Yes,
he wanted to assuage the nervousness of the Ukrainian people, that potentially what comes next will be less effusive in its support for that country and its struggle against Russian aggression and oppression. Clearly, Boris Johnson wanting to assuage those concerns, but really remarkable pictures of Boris Johnson walking around on the streets there in Kyiv. As you rightly say, people being told to stay away from the parades. The American embassy this week saying that Americans should vacate the city. Boris Johnson going there and walking around with only a few guards around him, when we know the risk of missile strikes, when we know the risk of the sort of assassination attempts that the Russian state has carried out. It is a very brave move, and indeed the third of this conflict. But I thought also interesting in Boris Johnson's statement earlier were the words not just for the Ukrainian people, but for the people of Britain as well, where he was describing the energy crisis in the United Kingdom as almost a price worth paying. He said that we pay in our energy bills while the Ukrainian people pay in their blood, contextualising the issue that we're going into this winter.
I was just going to